Okay, you guys can see my screen, right? Okay, so yeah, this was where we stopped, where we talked about, where we recapped on props and state passing, and I think yeah, Manu this morning took you guys on also on stage, but today we're going to go into a more, like I said, a bit more complex tax to understand what is happening. So let me power up my VS Code. Okay, so we have, again, let me clean up all of this. Let me remove this. Let me remove this. Mm, let me remove. Okay, I was zooming. I'm coming. Let me clean in this component here. Okay. Okay, so let me zoom in. All right. Okay, like I said today, we're going to go into something a bit more complex than what we have done so far. So on our browser, we currently have our usual welcome to React. And now what we're going to talk about, we're also going to still talk about states, hooks. We're also going to talk about props, and we're also going to look out. We're also going to look at how we can define components and pass props around. You guys are already familiar with that. Like I said, yes, on Tuesday, we're just kind of recapping, and today we're going to recap it properly and end this class for props and states. So currently, let me we have done counter, we have done let me see. Okay, so you guys basically understand the concept of props right now, right? Like how to pass props, how to define it, and Habib and John, are you guys with us?
John is a pro.
Hmm?
John is one of the submentors.
Mm-hmm. Okay, sorry about that. I actually used to forget who are submentors. Okay, so let's get started. Like again, I asked, you guys are familiar with prop passing and how to. Okay, so let's just go straight into hooks and using hooks together with states. Okay, now I have this welcome to React, and I'm going to create a separate component here. I'm just going to call it let me do main.gsx. So we do our RFCE. to have that snippet. So this RFC is a shortcut if you want to create functional components. I think you have to install the extension, but let's go on to write our function. Let's say main, and let me return it. I want to export this in. Okay, so now let me take this main and let me put it inside here. Okay, so that works, and let's see, we should have your main component. Okay, so now today we want to talk about, we're going to talk about multiple things, but let's start with our good old use state friend. So let's import our use state here. So now that we've imported use state, now I want to define two states here. I want to define a name state, and the what, and is setter function. So let's define name and what, set name. Again, I explained that anything you put here will be regarded as the default. If I put a string here, that means this is a string. If I put an object here, that means name is going to be what, an object. And if I put an array here, it means name is going to be what, an array. So let me set it to a string, and let me duplicate that and also do the same for age. Okay, good. So we know how to do this. We know how to render dynamic data with our curly braces, and we basically know how to work with that. So what we want to talk about today is basically, we normally used to see forms online on websites. If I go to this my website, for example, if I go to this my application, for example, we normally used to see forms on multiple pages, forms that they tell us to fill, they tell us to submit. You want to register for something, fill in the form, and you normally used to ask, like, if I fill my form, how does it work? Like, how, if I write my name here, for example, if I write my email, test at example.com, and if I write my password here, like, how does this work? Like, a form, and I'm submitting the form, how do I get what I'm imputing in the form, and how do I work with this data? So that is one of what we're going to look today, how you can use state and manage forms. We're going to talk about it briefly, because if you want to go in depth, you're going to talk about how you want to manage the error and the rest, but that is too complex for what we want to do. So what we want to talk about now is, we're going to bring in our good old, just up here. Let me define another div. Okay, this is JS. Let me define a div here, and let me now bring in our form component from HTML. So this is a form HTML element that is you are going to use to wrap inside the form. So what I'm going to do here now is I'm now going to also use an impute. I'll bring an impute. So impute is basically the form that you see, but what the impute is all dependent on the type. So if you look at the type of an impute, you're going to see plenty things here, which is basically what you see. Is it a button? Is it a checkbox? Is it a date? Is it an email, and all the rest? So this one, we're just going to call it a text, and we're just going to give it a name. We're going to give it a name of what? Of name. So this name, let's do the full example, because I want you guys to understand what name is. So this name here is a unique identifier for this input. So I have given this input now a name of name, and I can come here and I can say I want to do a p tag. I want to do a p tag, and I want to call this one name. So these are what you see like on top of your forms, like this email and this password. So this email and what this password. So that is what I'm trying to replicate here. So now I'm going to give this p an ID of name. Okay. So now placeholder. If you guys are not familiar with placeholder, we're going to talk about it when we see it on the screen. Enter your name, and we're going to. Okay, now let's just save this, for example. Let me duplicate this and let me do the same for. Let me do age. Let me do AGE. Enter your age. Okay, so now we have this, and if we come to, oh sorry, if we come to, yeah, now if you see our UI now is now showing the name, and it's showing what the age input and the what and the name input. So now if you go back to your code now, how do we manage what we are imputing inside this input? So now I write my name. I said Abdul. Okay, I've typed my name, and let me put the age 50. So what happens? How do I manage this name that I've imputed and this age? And let's say, for example, I want to use it to log in, as we're seeing here. This information, how do I now like pass it to somewhere, or how do I now render it? We have already looked at that. We've looked at how we can actually use states to actually manage most of that. Today, we're going to look into it in depth. So now let's talk about this our states. We have two states here, and what that states are is what is a name and a what and an age. And we know what this name is. This name is the what is the value of what this setter is what is returning, and this age is the. Always know that your use states, the first one is the main value that you're going to use, while the setter is like the function that actually performs the action to what supply this value here. So now on these two states, we're going to plug these two states inside this what inside these two inputs. Now I have a value on the input. What on the input element, there is a what there is a value. There is a value key that is inside, and what this value takes, this value is going to actually take either a dynamic data or a hard-coded value. So if I come here and I say value is test, so what this input is, what the value of this input is always going to be what is always going to be test. So because this value is the value of what of this input, which is always going to be test. So what we're going to do today, we're going to use our dynamic data, and we're going to render what this name here. So this name value is what I'm passing to my value here. Let me just remove this so you don't get confused on what name is. Let me just clean this up. Don't think this name is this name here. That is not it. You don't want to confuse the two. So let's just leave this and let's just continue with what we're doing. Okay, so now we have the first input, which is a text name, and we have assigned the value to be the value of this our state. We're also going to do the same for the second one, and we're going to say value, and we're going to assign it to to our age. So what these two inputs are is basically what this is going to what this input is going to be. So if you check our browser now, you can see enter your name and enter your age. They are still empty. But if I come here and I say Abdul, and I come here and say 50. So what the value of this has become is what? The default value that I added to my what to my use state. Now you're seeing Abdul here, and now you're seeing 50, and all our what are coming from this state. What this Abdul is it what is this name, and what this name is what we have given to this input. Same thing here. 50 here, it's the value of this age, and the value of this age is what we have given to what to this one here. So now let me clean that up. I just wanted you guys to understand. So now what we want to do now is to use these setters, these two sets name and set age, to define it on this input. So we can impute what we can impute inside the input box, and we can get access to the what to the value. So now I have a what a method inside my input. Remember, this value came from inside it, and if you click on the attribute of this input, it is very very plenty. And you, just like how we used for our button, we looked at that the other day, you can also use this input for plenty things. You just need to know what it's for. You can use an on click, and you can use an on drag, basically everything. So the one we'll be using today is this what on change. This on change is very important and very crucial that you understand it when you're dealing with input. If you hover on it, you can see is a change event handler. It can either accept a function, or you can also pass a function to it. So what we're going to do now is, it's also dynamic. So these are our curly braces, means it's dynamic. We're also going to define an inline function here. You can also define a function outside of it. You can define a function here for it, just like how we did the other day. We explained how we can do inline function or external function. So today let's do inline function, and let's see what this is going to do. Now we have defined this on change, and we have defined an inline function. But what do we want to do on this input? We want to what? We want to call on this our set name function here. We want to call on this our set name function and call it. But how does the value of this input now, how do we access it and set it to this name? So when you call on change, or when you're performing a form submission, a mutation, or a button, you have access to what? To a parameter on every single function that is happening inside some specific HTML element. And when you hover on this parameter, it's telling you what it is. When you guys go into TypeScript, you're going to see the importance of what all of this is. So you can see it's telling you it's a change event HTML input element. If I hover on change, this is what change event handler HTML input element. But if I hover on the parameter, this is the change event. So this is the handler of this change event. So the difference between on change is like it is what is handling the changing of this particular input element, change event handler. But if you now hover on it is the change event, meaning the value or the event that happens when you have actually called on this on change. And it has a lot of parameters. So before we start explaining, let's just console log what this is. Okay, so now we are no longer calling set name, we are console logging. We are console logging our values here. So if you go back to our browser, and let's open our inspect tool. Let me drag this here. You provided a value props to a form field without an on change. You can see that even my browser is already warning me that I passed a value without an on change. So these two works hand in hand, because when you define a value, you want to define how you change that value. But I've already passed the on change on one, so this error is probably coming from the other one. So now I added the on change and the console.log on my my name or input. So what I'm going to do now is let me find a way to put this side by side. Okay, so now this is side by side. All right, so immediately I start typing, you can see what's happening on the console. And all this is coming from where? All this is coming from this console.log. And all this is coming from what? This E. This E of the parameter of this unchanged that I'm console logging. That is where it's what we are having this plenty console.log. So now let's clear it again. Let's do that again. So look at this, my input. I have blur it and I want to type something. I now say Abdul. If you look at the console.log, it has a lot of what? A lot of parameter. So you can see bubbles, cancelable, all these are just giving you like extra information about it. But the most important one that we want to use is what is this target, because this target is what's housing the value, and this is the value that we want. This is the value that we need to get access to what the user has imputed here. So now we have a bunch and a lot of attributes here. Some are useful when you need it, but some are. But the one you're going to use the most is what this target. And this target, why we're using it is because it's housing the value of what we have imputed in here. So now let's look at that. So back to this again, we have a bunch of things. So you can see all those things in that our console log is basically the same thing that you're seeing here. We are seeing the bubbles, the cancelable, and all the rest. So I want to call on target, and I want to call on what? Value. So console.log e target and what? And value. So now if I save it and I go back to this, so when I type A, you can see A has been console logged. When I type Phytech, you can see what Phytech has been console logged on this input. So this is giving me the access to what the user is imputing, and I can use this and store it inside my state, so that you should understand how we can use this to actually access this set name. So when I call on set name, all I just need to do is remove my console.log and I call on set name. And I'm setting the function to the value of these inputs, which is basically what we have just seen. So if I save that, I think I've saved it. Yeah. Okay, this is coming from the other. Let's fix that. So let's do, since we know what it is now, we can define set age. So when we do that, let's reload our page and see. So you can see the error is no longer there again. So now looking at this now, let's now see what will happen. I want to say Phytech. Remember, I am not console logging anything again. I am just accessing the value. This is now Phytech, and the age is 50. But now let's console log our value. So now let's come here and let's console.log. Let's console.log our value. Let's say I want to console.log. I want to say name. Name is name, and age is what? Is age. So if I call on this now and I refresh my browser again, because I want to clear all this. So you can see name is empty, age is empty, and this is coming from what? This is coming from our default state. So this default state is what is being console.log at the moment. But when I come here and I write Phytech, and I come here and I write 50, you can see my name has changed to what? Phytech, and my age has changed to what? Has changed to what? To Phytech. Now you can just use this and you can process how you can use this to actually mm, um, um, format this value. So, for example, you want to send it to a database, you want to log in, you will know that, okay, I now have access to the value of this my input and the value of this my age. I can now use that to what? Send a data to a database somewhere so that I can what? I can query those data. So that's basically how you can what? You can use states to get what? To get access to what? To your values on your what? On your input. Basically just this. And you can have as many as you want. I can create another one and say email. And I'll come here and say set email. And it's basically just going to be the same thing. Text, enter your email. This will now change to email, and this will change to set email. So now I have these three. And basically, you now understand how these three works with our use state. This state is for the name state, this is for the email state, and this is for the what? The age state. And you can use that to do basically anything that you want to do. So now we have been console logging and all the whatnot. Let's have a button. So now inside this our form, just below the last input, let's define a button. We have used button before. You guys have seen button before. So let's use our button. And again, button has a bunch of those attributes that we saw, but this one, the type, we want to give it what? Submit. So what this button is going to do is we're going to submit our what? Our form. So now we have this type of what? Button of what? Of submit. And it's living inside this form. Now, how do we now submit this data to, let's say, a backend, or let's say an external API? We are using form, and generally when you're using form in React, it is very, very important that you know what this form is, because this element is very, very powerful. Because if I come here now, let's see what is going to happen. If I say Phytech, if I say email, Phytech, let me change this. Let me change this type from text to email. So to know it accepts an email. If I say Phytech at test.com, and if I give it an age of what, let's say 50, what happens when I click on this submit? See what happens at the top. It basically reloads the page, and I actually don't have access to my data again. If I do that again, let's recreate that so you can see that. If I say 50, and if I know that is email, if I say test at test.com, and if I say my age is what is 50, again, if I click on submit, you can see it reloads my page, and it basically does not do anything. All my data are what are lost. That is coming from what? This form. Because this submit is triggering what? This form. But there is nothing that I gave to this form for me to tell it what it should do when I click on this submit. That is why that is happening. So what we want to do now is we want to create an external function here. And this function, we want to call it handle submit. So I have this what this handle submit. And what this handle submit is what I'm now going to what to pass on this my form. Again, on this my form, if I check all the attributes, again, this a lot of it. But you just need to know the one that you need. And the one that I know I need is what the on what submit. When I call on submit, and I want to pass this my what handle submit function. The same thing that we did on this on change. If you hover on form submit, it's telling you that it's a form event handler. It's a what is an event handler. When I hover on change, is a what change event what handler. So basically, I still have access to this what to this e, this parameter. This parameter can be anything. I can call it an event. I can call it e. I can call it f. It's basically just a parameter that you're passing. But you will see everywhere that everybody is doing e or everybody is doing what event. So what this event, what this e is giving is doing is that when I'm submitting the form, for it not to for when I click on this, I don't want it to reload the page again and basically do what it's doing. What I'm going to do is I'm now going to call on a method called what prevent default. So what this prevent default function is I'm telling it to what to stop the what the default. I'm telling it to stop the what the default form submission. It should what it should stop that default of some formation. So when I click on this submit, I do not want it to what to reload the whole page. So now, what do I want to do when I click on this submit? What do I want to do with this information that I have gotten from this input? Let's say now I now want to what and I want to console log. For now, since we're not using anything, let's just console log. Let's console log. Let's console log name. Let's console log name. Let's console log email. And let's console log age. So I have these three console log here. That way, when I click on this submit, I should see those three console log here. So when I when I say Phytech and I say test at phytech.com and I say the age is what 50. When I click on what submit, you can see my page does not it does not reload, and I have access to what to those three console log Phytech, test, and what and 50. So now I have talked for 40 minutes and Habib, Chuku, Islamiat, Tali, Eliza. Have I seen this name before? Eliza.
A sub mentor.
Well done, brother. Okay.
Thank you.
So now I am calling on console.log. I've been calling on console.log. Somebody let me comment on this my main component. So first task for the day is, let me refresh my page. Let me remove all these things. Habib, Chuku, Islamiat, and Tali. This is the first task for the day. When I come for the first time on this page, right? So when I come on this page for the first time, I am seeing this my form. Now, I want to show what my name is below here. Like name, email, and age. I want to display it below here. When I click on I click on this submit. Somebody, anybody?
Um, you create HTML elements inside your return this thing, and then you dynamically render the name, email, and age there.
Where?
Inside your return under the form.
Under the form here.
Yeah, yeah, just create anything like p div or anything that accepts an HTML.
P. Uh-huh.
Then you render the name, dynamically render the name and email.
Uh-huh.
And then the age also. You can signify by writing in name at the, outside the name.
Okay,
Yeah,
like this.
yeah, do the same thing for the email. Yeah, I think that's all.
We think that is, or
Oh,
no, that is
you
not
have,
all.
you have to type now.
I know. I do not want to see this guy. I do
Okay,
not
go.
want to see any of this until I have submitted it.
Okay.
I don't want to see any of this until I have clicked on submit. Islamiat, Chuku and Habib.
Mm,
Am I only here with
So
Ali?
you can conditionally render it. I don't know if it will work.
Let me give it a try. Oh,
Ali, you said I can what?
I'm not very good with React. I just started a few days ago.
Ali, what did you
Um,
say?
it's Habib.
I was talking about conditionally rendering them.
Conditionally rendering them.
Yeah.
Okay, that's the way to go. Habib, how do I conditionally render them?
Hello.
I'm with you. How do I conditionally render these three elements?
Well, for me, I would say you create a function.
Creating a function to conditionally. When did you say you started React?
This week.
This week.
Yes.
You were not part of the first class.
No, I don't think so.
Did you watch the recording?
No.
Is there a recording for you to watch?
There is. I just got the Discord link today. I've not really gone through the recording.
Okay. So by next week, you should be strong after watching all the recordings.
Yes. I can do it with JavaScript, and that's why I just suggested making a function. But I don't know about
So
React.
how do I conditionally render it to the function? Help me here.
Uh,
I do not want to see these three guys. Tali said we should conditionally render them. I do not want to see these three guys until I have clicked on this submit so that it can display what I imputed here.
Can I proceed?
Okay, Tali.
Okay, go back to your JS code.
Okay.
So inside the p tag, just delete everything you wrote there.
I should delete all these guys.
Yes,
You don't like seeing them. Okay.
yes. Then do a conditional state and the dynamic rendering.
Dynamic rendering again.
Then write the name.
I should write name.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Then and double and space
Double
and
and
double. Yeah. Then div
div.
or a p tag, anyone.
P tag.
Yeah. Then conditional render the name there.
Conditionally render the name here.
And
Like this.
write name before you write outside it is and write name. Yeah.
Okay.
Then I think you should do the rest for do the same thing
Okay.
for the rest.
I should do the same thing, right? Am I doing it right?
Yes.
What's the last one?
Age.
Okay. Is that all?
Yes, sir.
Okay, let's check that out. Okay, I'm no longer seeing them. So what do I do now?
Start typing.
I should start typing tally.
Yes. Yes, I think that's it.
Okay, so my email is what? Tally at, and my age is 50. Okay, brilliant, 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 Tally. Now, what if I now want to, what if I want to show it in my alert when I click on submit?
That should be on the function, on the form function.
It should be on the form function. Where's our form function? That's good. That's good. This conditional rendering is very, very correct. So if you want to render something only when it's there, that is how you do your conditional rendering.
You do your alert inside there.
I do my alerts here. I call it right.
Yes.
And I basically write my name, right?
Yes, boss. Exactly.
Okay, that's good. So if I click on submit, I should see name, what? Tally. All right, that's very, very. So now one final test. I just want to test one final question. When I do not impute anything here, let me see. When I do not impute anything and I click on submit, how do I stop that?
I think you should use it's still use a conditional rendering.
Or this submit, how do I go about that?
Inside the function.
Inside the function. These are our function, okay?
Yeah, I think you should use an if statement there. Like if it's empty.
If, like this?
Yes. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
If name or name.
If name,
Yeah, no, inside the bracket.
okay. If name
And
and
age
age
and email
and email
equals empty.
equals
Three equals to,
3 equals to
yeah,
empty.
double quote. Then you inside the curly braces you put the I think you return, just return.
Return. Yeah.
Else yeah, and
Else.
else alert
The
inside
what?
move the
Alert.
alert inside. Yeah.
This.
Yes, I think it should work.
Okay. Let's try out Professor Tali's example. Tali is going far. So now let's submit.
Wow. That hurts.
It still works.
Mm.
Another solution. Tali.
Yes, sir. Can you hear me?
Yes, boss, I agree with you.
Yes, Chiku.
Okay, I think we- let's do it kind of one after the other.
Okay,
Like
explain.
let's use something like inside the if else statement.
Uh-huh.
What we use, let's say just there is the inside the if statement.
Mhm.
Just make these changes now.
Let's use something like if not name.
Okay. So I should clean this if statement. Let me comment out Tali's own.
Okay. They
So
use
let me
another if.
Oh, I see where my mistake comes from.
Another if.
another if.
Yes.
Maybe I didn't click the
Open a listen.
Open
Maybe I
So
didn't click the
do
button.
something like if not name.
Exclamation mark.
what
Exclamation.
is that?
Exclamation.
Exclamation.
Yes, name.
Name.
Yes. Enter open a curly bracket and let's test something. Just okay, let's alert something. But not the name. Let's just alert something. Let's
Okay.
alert something like empty for testing. Yes, something like that. Let's try it and let's click on the button.
It's going to alert text.
Okay, so now see what we now do.
Okay.
Yeah.
I am
If
going
not
where
name.
you are. I'm inside your car now. You are driving me. I don't know what I'm doing. Oh yeah, continue.
So so what we now do now is if not name
Mm-hmm.
or inside the this thing. Inside the if statement.
This one,
Let's use or yes, give space.
uh-huh.
If not email,
Not
not
email.
email.
Yeah.
Or
If not age.
if not age.
Let's okay.
Just
Now
return.
let's return it.
Just return it.
Okay. Let's
Yes.
return.
Else alert.
No, we don't.
Hello?
Even if we don't put else, it will still work. But let's put else.
So do we still need this button? Like only do we still need the next button or on the right button? At the end of the
Let's try it.
yeah, it will work.
Okay.
At the end of the question, do we need the next button or the on the right?
It's not working right now. Huh?
So let's add something like a name. Let's add name and leave others. Let's see if it will print name. If it will allow the name.
Let's add a name
Something happened.
and let's submit. It still did not work. That is correct, right?
Yes.
Sorry, but I'm finding a way kind of to lock anyone that is available. Something like that.
To
Or let's
anyone that is
okay,
available.
let's view all of them first. I don't know, but
Yeah, you're correct. You're doing the right thing.
yes.
You understand?
Yes.
Now you're seeing it. Okay? Yeah?
Okay. Well,
Which
if you want to, okay, I think this is correct, Abi.
okay.
And the thing
Oh,
is,
you know
we didn't alert age and
Yeah,
email.
because I only alert.
yes, something like this.
So now the final exercise for this session is now let's say this is our main application, just like how we have this application here. And you can see this application, if I remove this and I remove this, you are seeing an error to tell you to provide it, meaning there is a visual representation of something telling you what is wrong. So how do I do that here? When I click on submit, I want to tell my user, come on, enter this, and enter this.
The
I
thing
want
is,
to
where do you want to display the message? Is it inside the placeholder or under the
you
input
cannot
box?
display it inside the placeholder, and they will not know. They will think it's a placeholder.
Okay, though you have to create another
Yes.
tag like p tag under the this.
I create another P tag.
Yes. It's going to be faster as you work on the back
Okay.
end. You know what to press. Then go and create let me think. Just dynamically render like an error message stuff like that. Just write error message. Dynamically render error.
Error.
Yeah. Then you need to go and define your error inside the functions.
Okay. What is my inside this function?
Wait, I'm coming. Yeah,
Okay.
like const error.
Const error. Uh-huh.
Then give it a value.
A value. What is the value?
Like please fill in empty this thing or something
Okay,
like that.
please, let's say enter name. Okay, enter empty value like this.
Yes. Then inside the if statement, if every where you write return, just put your error there or set error. Oh no, sorry, please. You have to use state to set your error.
That's what I'm saying. You need to use state because
Use
the
state.
state.
Yes. What do I mean? I need to. I'm doing what you people are telling me to do.
No, please
Okay,
use
sir.
for
Sorry, sir.
correct use state.
Use state.
I should create a use state.
Yeah, an error use state.
Is
In
your
use
code I'm
state.
writing is so?
Yeah,
Okay, sir.
const use state. And the structure use state.
Use state, right?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not seeing your screen. Your screen is paused, so I don't even know if you are moving.
Okay, sorry, there are two lights now, so you're still not seeing it?
It's just paused. I'm coming. Let me rejoin.
No, it's not you, it's me. Wait.
I'm like it's showing, but it just paused.
Wait. It's from me, I'm coming.
Okay.
Are you seeing it now?
Yeah, we are good to go.
Okay. Where were we?
VS Code.
Your error. You say I should
Uh-huh.
use state.
Yeah, set it to an empty variable in this thing. Happy? Yeah, an empty this thing. Empty code.
Empty quote like this.
Double quote.
Okay,
So
I've done
you
that.
return your sets your set error
Where?
inside the if statement.
I should inside this return.
And you do set error.
Set error.
Yeah. And then you assign something inside like enter name or something like that.
Enter.
Please fill in empty space.
So basically this const that you defined on top.
Fill in empty space. Yeah.
So what's the use of this const on line 14?
You can delete it now.
Okay.
I think that should work.
Okay. Let's test it. So if I click submit.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's not go very complex. I will have said I want to see. Are you seeing my screen?
Yes.
No, you're seeing the wrong screen. Right. But what am I presenting now? They just brought light, so I'm connecting to my monitor. Wait 1 minute. Okay, so I would have said I prefer to see please enter your name, enter your email, enter your age. So specific error message for specific field, but this is okay. This is good. So let's not complicate things. Okay, that's good from both Chuku and Talha. I say Talha, Tali. So where we want to, so basically what we just spoke about it is using what? Using states to manage what? Form input. So Habib was wrong.
No, I just realized how much I do not know.
How much? No. We are still in the surface, so you can still catch up. There is a lot for you to catch up, but if you actually put in everything, you can catch up very, very fast. It's actually very, very easy. It's actually very, very easy. I mean, I know I'm saying that because of, yes, we have spent a lot of time here, but it is very, very easy. Okay,
That's reassuring.
so now we have done this today, and with this, we are closing. No, I'm not closing use state. I'm going to use use state again before the class end. But what I want to introduce now is use effect. So let me basically clean up this guy. Let me clean up all this guy. So remember, we still have a component here called main. Okay, we'll come back to that later. But now, again, just like how you saw use state, there's also a hook in React called use effect. Use effects accept a function that contains imperative, possibly effective code. So let's look at the definition of use effects. Let me know. Give you a definition from the top of my head, and I'm saying something else. Okay, let's see. Okay. Use effect is a what? Is a hook, is a React hook. Remember, we're talking about hook. We've talked about use states. Now, use effect. Use effect is a React hook that lets you synchronize a component with an what? External system. Is a React hook that lets you synchronize a component with an external what? System. Use effect. It is actually very, very powerful. If you understand it, it's good. But you will see most people just listening to my voice. The screen is not clear due to my network. Okay. Maybe Islamiyat, later you're going to join and you're going to watch the recording properly. So now, use effect is a React hook that lets you synchronize a component with a what? With an external system. This word you see, it is very, very powerful. And before you use it, you should make sure you understand why you're using it. Because if you go out there into the React world online, you will see a lot of people shying away from using use effects. I know a company that I worked with, a code that we wrote, and they did not want us to use effect for anything except some peculiar scenario. So we're going to talk about use effect in depth, and we're going to look at what we can actually do with it. But it's a React hook that lets you synchronize the component with an external system. So this is how use effect work. We saw use state. Use state is we define use state at the top. We do a bracket use state, set use state equals to use state, and we define it. That is a state, something that can change or something. But use effect, you call on use effect, which is a function that you accept your setup and what your dependencies, which you can see here. The optional, it is optional. Now they give you example of what you can use state, use effects for. Number one, connecting to an external system, wrapping effects inside in custom hooks, controlling in React non-widget, fetching data with use effects. This is what we're going to look at today, fetching data with effects. Displaying, these are basically just what you can use effect for. Now let's look at an example. Reference. Call use effect at the top level of your components to declare an effect. This word, effect. You import it. Now, they have a state here that calls on use state, which is giving you this local URL, server URL, set server URL. Now, they are calling on this effect. This use effect, they call on it, and you can see the first the first what? The first argument. If you come here, you can see use effect accepts two parameters, the setup and dependency. This first one is the what is the setup. You can see from here to when they open this bracket to when they close it. This comma is what is differentiating both of them. The first one and the what? The dependencies. Now, inside this use effect, you can see they perform some action. They created a component coming from a what with from another external component, and they are what they are passing this state into it, and what a room ID that they are getting from somewhere. So if we can, okay, this is just explaining exactly. This is explaining what this function is. You need to pass two arguments to use effect. You need to pass two arguments with use effect. A setup function with the setup code that connects to the system. It should return a cleanup function with what cleanup code that disconnects from that system. So we're going to look at that. Now, this first parameter is what is the setup code that connects to the what to the system. It should return a cleanup function. For you to use effects properly, you should always return a cleanup, because this is very, very strong. And when you render your page or when you call on this use effect, you will always want to clean it up. So anything that you do on top of it, inside of it, you will want to return a function to clear it or to clean it up. React calls your setup and cleanup function whenever it's necessary, which may happen multiple times. Your setup code run when your component is added to the page. Now, this word mount, it is very, very crucial to the use effect ecosystem, because use effect and a component mounting are basically hand in hand. Your use effect will always run when your component is added to a page, which means when the components mount. So if I have a separate component somewhere that is using use effect, and I import that component as another component, and that component is being rendered, my use effect is going to call immediately. My component is rendered, and that word that you're going to hear about is mount. What is mount is when it actually mounts on your browser, when it's mount on your page. That is when use effect is usually called. After every re-render, your components where the dependencies have changed. Number one, use effect calls on on your setup, which is this first one. When your component mount. When your component mount for the first time, it is always going to call this guy. Number two, after every re-render of your component, where the dependencies are have changed. So now we looked at this guy. A list of dependency, including every value of the components used inside of those functions. A list of dependencies you are passing inside the second parameter here. And what these dependencies are basically are values from your components that are being used inside of those functions. So inside this your first setup code. Any value that you defined or you passed inside here, you must pass it inside your dependencies. So it's going to call use effects when your dependencies has changed. So imagine this use state being a button or an input. Whenever this server URL that I'm passing inside of this my use effect, whenever this changes, this my use effect is going to run again. Number three, your cleanup code runs on the final time after your component is removed from the page, again on mount. It is now going to call this my return, my cleanup code, when I have removed this use effect, or when it has on mount from the page. Let's say, for example, I go from one page to another, or I go from a component to another, I render a component to another component. If component A that I'm rendering has use effect, and I now switch to component B that does not have use effect, my component A is going to call this my cleanup function, and it's going to remove this use effect from the from the browser or from the code. Again, this explanation is just basically making you understand what use effect is. Let's just brush through it. When the chat room component mounts, so this our whole component called what chat room. When the chat component above the page, when the chat component above gets added to the page, so when we add this chat component to the page, it will connect to the chat room with the initial server URL and the room ID. So when this component mounts, so what this component is doing is that it is connecting to something, create connection that is coming from another component. And it's telling us that when our chat component is added to the page, it will connect to the chat with the initial server URL. And this initial server URL is coming from here, from our state that we are passing to it here. If either server URL or room ID changes as a result of a re-render, say if the user picks up a different chat room in the dropdown, your effect will disconnect from the previous room and connect to the next one. Just as how I explained earlier, let's say this use state is an input, and you impute something that changes this server URL. This use effect is going to run again with the new state. If you come here and you see this line, it is very, very important that you understand what this is. It is going to re-render when the dependencies has changed. So these are the dependencies of this use effect: server URL and room ID. This use effect is going to re-render, is going to reconnect, is going to rerun when either of this guy has changed, be it an input or a drop down, like they explained here. They say, which is an example, if the user picks a different chat room in a drop down. So let's say this set server URL is being set on a drop down component. When I click on a drop down and I select a new server room, my server URL is now going to change, which is now going to make this use effect run again, which is now going to call on this use effect that's connects to this function. So that is basically what use effect is. Now we're going to look into into examples. But let's use this example. Let's look at this. In this example, the chat room component uses a use effect to stay connected to an external system defined in chats.js. Okay. So now, if you look at this chat room component, it is rendering this use effect that is also calling on create connection. If we check on create connection, it's basically just exporting a console.log of the server URL and the room ID that is being passed to it. So let's understand what is going on here. And again, one thing that is going to help you in your coding journey is the ability of you being able to read code. Which is why you are always advised to always write clean and precise code. So when it's being read by others, they will understand it. So let's read this code and let's understand what this code is doing. We have a function here called a component called chat room. We are using our use state. The default value is localhost 123. We'll come back to this use effect, which because it's our point of concern on this topic. Now we have a return where we are returning the component called server URL, and it has an input. Again, look at what we just did with our use state. So this is basically what we just did with use state, where we are we're calling on change. We're passing our parameter. We are set value with the e-target.value. This is basically what we just did just now. Okay. So this is the main application. And this our chat room component is being, I think it's been rendered in the main app component. So let's look at our main app component. Our main app component has two states. It has a state here called room ID, and the default value is general. And it has another state here called show, which is a Boolean, true or false. So now we have a label here called choose the chat room, which is what we're seeing on the bottom here, choose the chat room. Now we have a select drop down. This drop down here, general, travel, and music, and it is all calling again, what we just see with our on change, calling on set room, which is this state here, to actually change what the user has selected to any of these value. So e.value.target, if I select travel, it will set my room ID to what? Travel, which will now change this from general to what? To travel. And I have a button here that what? It calls on click, and it sets show to what? To the opposite of what? Show. So now show is what? Is false. When I click on this button, it is going to change show to what's true. And we have a optional, just like how we saw Tally did just now. We have an optional rendering here. If show is true, render an HR, which is a line. And if show is true, render these components. I just hope you guys are following. Are you guys with me? Chuku, Habib, are you with me?
Yes, I just about is a little bit confused.
Yeah, so this is the first time that you're actually coming into use effect. It will definitely be confusing, but when you use it multiple times, you're going to understand it. So that is why I'm coming to the documentation from the React website itself, so we can actually look at it together. So, but we basically understand all what's going here. These are our basic React 101 that we've been doing, where we are displaying all this and we are setting it. But the most important thing that I want you to know is this line 41. When show is true, it is going to render what? This component, meaning what? This our chart component is going to be mounted for the first time. For now, this chart component is not showing anywhere on the screen because show is what? Is false. And remember the definition of use effect. When a component mounts, meaning when a component is rendered, it is now going to call what? Use effect. So now let's look at that in action. When we click on what? This general is what? Is basically this option is basically this our room ID. And this our room ID, we are passing it as a props. You guys understand props. We're passing it as a props to what? Chat room. And this props is now rendered inside our use effect. Understand what? The definition of this use effect dependencies. Two things is going to happen. Our chat component is going to get what? Okay, I think chat component is only true when we open this guy. Good. Now, room ID. When I select something here, room ID is going to get passed to what? To chat component. And this chat room component this room ID is being used inside this use effect. So room ID is now going to be passed inside what? Inside this use effect. But me selecting this guy, it has not rendered the chat component. If I do this, travel, music, general, I am changing this room ID that is being passed to this chat component. But this my chat component is not being rendered yet because of this my 49. Show, it will only render if show is what? Is true. And for show to be true, we need to what? Click on this button, because if you click on this button, you can see it is setting show to the opposite of show. True or false. If I click it, show will become true. If I click it again, show will become false. So what should happen now? When I click on this chart, this my show will become true. This my chat room is going to mount. My use effect is going to run. My room ID is going to get passed to this room ID. I have passed my dependencies, and my what is now going to call on what? Create connection, which is now what? A component that returns connect, that is basically connecting to what? To the room ID and the server URL. So when I select music and I click on open chat, what happens? How do I expand this guy? How do I drag this guy down? Okay, good. What happens? My showroom gets mounted. And immediately I do that, it has called on this use effect. And what am I doing inside this use effect? I am basically just console logging the connect and the what and the disconnect. So when you look here, immediately I mounted, it's connected to what? To music. It disconnected and it finally connects to what I passed, which is this music. And this my component was rendered. And when my component was rendered, it's now displayed everything here that it's inside chat room. Chat room is displaying server URL. Server URL is now displaying an input, and that input is the default value of the server URL, chat1234. Which is this, and I have an unchanged that is setting it here. So I want you guys to understand what is going on here. I rendered this component. When I click on this button, it opens this showroom. When I immediately click on it, my showroom component gets mounted, and this use effect runs, which is what I'm seeing in my console.log. But what now happens when I perform a mutation on this input? Remember the definition of use effect. It will only re-render if there is a change in any of its dependency. If I open my console now and I change from music to general, you can see my use effect has run again. There's no way to expand this guy. If I change from general to travel, my use effect has run again. And if I do anything inside here? If I change this now to see, immediately I clean it, my use effect has run. If I say test, I'm typing test, you can see that my use effect is running because of this dependency array that I passed to it. Because my use effect is always going to run if any of this changes. So you can see the power of this use effect, and you can see the power of these dependencies. And we should understand what dependencies are and why we are passing them. Because if you pass a wrong dependency, your use effect is not going to connect properly, and basically your application might have, depending on what you're doing inside the use effect, it might create a big issue in your application. So that is basically the definition of use effect, and we should all understand what use effect it is a bit tricky, but when being used, you should know how to use it properly. Now let's go into our code and let's do a use effect by ourselves. So now we have imported use effects. Let me bring in use states too. So now let me define the time. Let me define the time state. This is going to be a number. Let me do 0. And I'm setting it. Okay. So now let me call on a use effect. Again, use effect, a setup code, and the dependency is the dependency array. I call this. Let me call on my cleanup code first, a setup code, and my dependency array. Note that your dependency array can be empty. You don't necessarily have to pass anything to the dependencies array. You just need to understand why you are keeping it empty. So now let's come here. Inside this use effect, what do we want to do? Before that, let me render a p tag. And let me render time. Let me see time. Let me see time. Let me just do this. So when we go back to our code, we're going to see time is 0. What we've been doing so far is when we click on the button, we are if you come here and we put a button here, and let's say click me. You can come here, you can call on your onClick, you can do your inline function, you can now do set time towards time plus 1. we have seen this multiple times. We have done this multiple times. When you come here, you click me, you can see time is changing. 1, 2, 3 is actually increasing by 1. So what if I don't want to click, but I want it to be counting? I want to build a timer. Just keep counting for me. I do not want to always do on this click me. This click me, it is very, very stressful. I don't want to do this. But I just want to sit down and be looking. If I reload my page, it's now 0. I just want to sit and be looking at this my 0 becoming 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Basically, I want it to just count. You can achieve that using a use effect. You can achieve that using a use effect. So if I come in here, I can now create a constant. I can call it time interval. I can come here and I create a time interval, and I can do is equals to now for you.
Let's go and check it.
A JavaScript
So can it be
Tali, can you please mute your mic? A JavaScript method for what? Increasing, like, set interval. If you hover on what set interval is, it is what this does not give you a explanation, but it's basically still like you're trying to call on something to like happen multiple times based on what you've passed to it. So let's look at this set interval, and is a function that also accepts two parameters. It accepts the setup, and it also accepts if you hover on it, you can see it also accepts a callback, and it also accepts a number, which is in millisecond. This ms is like millisecond. It accepts a callback and it accepts a number. So we're going to use this to actually increment our time that we're seeing on our screen. So let's do that now. I want to increment it. That is in millisecond. So if I do 1,000 in millisecond is basically just 1 second. So now inside this my callback function, I now want to call on my set time. Now I have access to this. What we did on the button is we call on set time, and we just on button click +1 +1 +1 +1. Now we're going to do the same. We're going to have access to the previous value of time. Give me the previous value of time, and increase the previous value of time with 1. When I save this, you can see on our browser, our time is automatically increasing by 1 on its own. That is happening inside of this use effect. I have a function inside this use effect that I call on set interval, which is a that accepts a callback and a number in milliseconds to tell me, basically set this time for me. Every 1 second, set this time for me and set it to add 1 from the previous value. So this our set time is taking the last one, it's a +1, taking the last one +2, taking the last one +3. If I come here and I say minus, now it's taking the 1, it's removing it, taking 1. Now what is happening is the previous value, it is removing 1, and that previous value is always stored, meaning you're just having this endless 60, 61, 60, 61. It is not going below 61. It's not going below 60 because 60 is the value that it's getting, and it's removing 1. It will get 60 back, it will remove 1. It will get 60 back, it will remove 1. It will get 60 back, and it will remove 1. So now let's change that to our plus. And remember, when we're reading the documentation, there is always a what? A return at the end, which is what? A cleanup. Which is what? A cleanup, which is a function, a callback cleanup, and we're going to clear what? Clear interval, which we're going to call our time interval. So this, the same way you have set interval is the same way we have what? This clear interval. These are what? These are JavaScript methods that you can call on anything that you want to do. Set interval is setting it. Clear interval is, you basically understand what that means. It is what? It is clearing it. So we basically still have our timer increasing on its own. So we are achieving this with the help of what? With the help of use effect. So if I remove this, our time has now gone back to what? To being what? 0. So that is the what? That is the basic example of use effect. But we have now been talking about data. Let's look at where we can actually fetch data from the web. And there is always this what is it called? Yeah, JSON placeholder. This JSON placeholder is what? Is a fake API. Is an public fake API that you can just call. You can call and what? You can actually load data. So I can call on this my fetch, and I can give it this URL, because this is a public URL, and I can what? Fetch what? Data. You can see what you can fetch. If I call on post, I can have access to 100 posts, 50 posts, 100 albums, and what? 50 photos, and what? 10 users. So this one is small. Let's look at these 10 users. So now what do we want to do is, when I come to this my application for the first time, like I want to load the other 10 users. I don't want the user to click a button for that to happen. When I just come, I just want to list out all what? The 10 users. So if we go back to our code, we can actually use what? Use effects to make that happen. So let's clean up this guy. First of all, let's introduce the states now to use to manage the users that we get back from the what? From the API that we want to use. States. So let me just call it like this. And inside here, let me console.log it. Let me console.log and let me comment it out. So now we want to call on, like I said, we want to fetch that data immediately the user comes to the page. We are seeing where we are performing side action when we click on a button. Well, now we can see that with the help of use effects, we can perform an action immediately. Our pages is what is mounted or is being rendered. So let's call on our helpful use effects friend again. Fahad, can you please mute your mic? Again, we call on the first function. The second one is a what? Is a dependency array. This is our first callback, and this is our dependency array. So now let's look at where we got that API from. Okay, so now we want to use this guy, and you can see it's already even giving us how we can use it. This fetch, you guys know fetch from your JavaScript. We're just going to call on that immediately. And basically, let me just copy all this code here. So let me copy all this code. But I want to fetch users. So I will change this to do one to what? To users. So if we come here and I paste that code inside here, I do not want to call to do. I want to call users. So you know what your .then is. This is all JavaScript response.json, .then, JSON. So what we're doing is that we're console logging the value. But for us here, let's set it to this our use state. And let's see what we have. So we have set users, and we'll just set it to to data. So now if I save this and I console log my users. So now I'm console logging these users. So you know that your console log is going to call when your component gets mounted or when your page loads. And also use effect is also going to call when your pages load or when your component is what is mounted. So when I save this now and I go back to the browser, time is not defined. Sorry. Yeah, I'm trying to render time. I've deleted that. Okay, now, so when I go back to the browser, you can see that you have something here called undefined. And this undefined, it is coming from this first console.log because this my component has not, this use effect has not finished what rendering. So the first time it has what undefined. And when it now finally mounts, it now what populates this data. So if you guys can remember the previous classes, I have been defining data for you guys on my own, but I've always been telling you that data can come from from external APIs, external components. So this is a perfect example, and we have this exactly. So now we have this data, and this data is an array of 10 people, and I've consolidated it here, and you can see that I now have 10. I now have their information inside of the details. So now let's look at what we can do with this. Let's look at what we can do with. Sorry. Now let's look at what we can do with this. Now I have console log what? I have console log this my user, which is basically what I'm seeing on my console log. But now I want to render. Let me see what I can render from this data. I want to render their name, their phone number, and their username. I want to render their name, their phone number, and their username. So now I want to render this. So when you come to this page for the first time, you are going to see 10 people, their name and their username. And somebody in this call today is going to help us with CSS. Since I can't write CSS, either Habib or Tali is going to help us with CSS. So when we come back here, again, you guys, we have already done array mapping and we've already done everything about array. So this should not come new to you guys when we're doing this. So users, if I come here now and I call on my dynamic and I call on users and I call on dot, it does not have all my array method. But I know that what I'm setting to this, my set users, is a list of users. So I can put my default value to be an array. That way, when I call on users, I have access to to my map. You guys know about map. So when I call on map, I have user, and for each user, I can now I map over it. I can either do my inline return immediately like this, and I give it a div. So because I want to render multiple information about them, I give it a div. Now, giving it a div, I now want to have 3p tag. TPP. I want to say name. I want to see phone number. And I want to see username. So we have done array mapping multiple times, and you must always when you're mapping over something, you must always get the key right. So I have mapped over this, and for each one, and I want to render their name. Always know that you must always spell this correctly when you're trying to access it. It also has email, so we can render the email too as well. So now I can come here and I call user.name. Where is this name coming from? This name is coming from what? It's coming from this name here. Email is coming from here. Phone is coming from here, and what? Username is coming from there. So now let's do that. Since we know. 1 minute. Okay, sorry, I received the call. So now let's now render the what? The phone. Let's render the what? The email. And let's render the username. Okay, now so if I save this, what should I see on my screen? I basically see what? The list of what? Of 10 people. And these 10 people are coming from where? Okay, it's giving me an error. Every list should have a what? To have a key props. Whenever you're mapping, always remember to what? To give the first unique identifier key. So if I do this, okay, that error should be gone. And what I'm seeing here now is now what? These 10 people. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. The last name is Clementia D what? DBQ. So if I come here, you can see that our name and our image. So now use this to what? To imagine you creating or developing a live application that is actually using data. So you can see that I have used use effects to actually fetch this data and what? And rendered it. Okay, so that is what we're going to what we're going to do today with use effects. So that is the example of what using use effects and what manipulating and what rendering what data using use effects. I use this use effect to actually fetch this data. And I use the use effect to what inside the use effect and what I set it. Now, why are you not curious that I am not passing anything inside here? My dependencies area is what is empty. This fetch is a what is a method from JavaScript that is being what called inside here. You do not want this to be rerun every time because it's a method from what JavaScript. If you put this inside here, you're going to actually crash your application. The only external source that I'm rendering inside this use effect, it is what set data. And set data functions, you do not pass set data on what? On dependencies. If you do this, you're going to actually get a warning that is telling you that you do not need to pass set data in it's going to work, but you do not need to pass set the state function inside what? Inside use state. So if you remove this, it will work very, 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 very fine. So with this, we're going to call it today's class, and your assignment and task for today is going to be huge and big. I'm going to type it and send it to the group so that you guys are going to see it from there. But if you have any question, I see there's only 2 of you that are left here. If you have any question, you can let me know, because from next week, we're going into page and how we can navigate from one page to another. I am not good with CSS. I will have styled this, but it will be part of your to-do, your assignment for today. So any question before we call it a day? Let's interact a bit before we call this class, and we will see each other on Tuesday.
No question from my end.
So view quality dot to lowercase.
I don't have any question.
Okay, Islamiat, are you with us or you will watch the recording later?
I'll watch the recording later. I'm just hearing your voice. What are you recording?
Is my voice explaining it well?
Well, so.
It's
But
well.
I'm not sure about what you recording will get it right.
What do you say?
I said if I watch the recording, I will.
Okay, you just came and you have told me to read you. It is me the radio.
So if you understand Yoruba.
I understand Yoruba. You are saying Shekoni, you don't know that I'm Yoruba.
Sorry. Okay, yeah, sorry.
Well done, man.
All right, sir.
Yes, ma'am. Okay, so Tani, with that, we're going to call today's class a day. So now I'm going to type your assignment. So basically what your assignment is going to be, Tali and Islamiat, what your assignment is going okay, what your assignment is going to be is you are now going to use CSS, and you're going to use CSS to make this. You're going to use CSS to make this very fine. You're going to make this very fine, and I want you to put 2 on a row. So that means you're going to do a grid and put 2 on a row. Now you're going to create a card-like, and store this their name inside, right? I don't think their data. I don't think they have picture. If they had picture, it would have been perfect. Let me see. Do they have picture?
Oh yeah. Comment out this.
They don't have picture. Okay, so basically what you guys are going to do is you're going to create a card like. Let's look at that together. Let's look at Tailwind. Let me show you what I mean. When I mean like a card like profile card. So what why am I not signed in? Okay, so let's come here. Where can I get that card? Okay, team section. Okay, I can use this. This one has it would have been better if their picture were on it. But now, Tali, are you with me?
Yes, I'm with you.
Okay, so now the assignment is this name that we just did here, the way it's looking like this. You guys are now going to use that same data and render it like this. So you are going to render the name, render their email and their phone number, and are going to render information about them. And there is going to be a button, the same way this one is a button. There's going to now be a button inside here. And that button is when you click on it, when you click on that button, what I want you to do is but what can I do? What can I do? What can I do? What can I do? When you click on it, I want you to render. I want you to render their address. So you're going to now have a button under their name like this, which is show address. So when you click on that button, the address should now show after this their information. But I'm going to describe it in the assignment properly, so you are going to understand. But Kali, do you understand what I'm trying to say?
Yeah, I get you very well.
Okay, that's perfect. So we're going to call that a day. So I see that today we have few inside the class. Plenty people are already retracting. But Tali, nice determination. I like the way you're determined about this class, and it's very, very good. Even Islamiat too, the way you are not hearing, the way you are not seeing, but you're still joining to hear. I don't know if my voice is that sweet. I mean, you just want to understand what's happening. But that is good to know that some people are very determined. Okay, so with that, I'm going to catch you guys next week, Tuesday, 3 p.m. And let's call it a day. So before evening, I'm going to send your assignment to the group. And yeah, we're going to catch up next week, Tuesday. Au revoir, everybody.
Bye-bye. Take care, sir.
Bye, Islamiat.